Secretary Mnuchin, are you in fact a lawyer?
I do not have a legal degree.
During a House Financial Services Committee hearing, Congresswoman Katie Porter absolutely pummeled Steve Mnuchin over some crap that he's trying to pull. Now, before I set up this clip, there is a second clip that is coming up as well of Katie Porter on CNN discussing what she supports, which is the Paycheck Recovery Act guarantee. I'll get to what that is. It is an incredible plan. But before we get there, to set this clip up, as HuffPost writes here, Porter was questioning Mnuchin's plan to claw back $455 billion in unspent stimulus package funding to the Treasury's general fund. The move would make it harder for his successor to access the money. Reading aloud a section from the stimulus measure known as the CARES Act, Porter noted that remaining funds can be transferred back to the Treasury no sooner than January 1st, 2026. So, with that said, watch this clip and Katie Porter absolutely exposing Steve Mnuchin here.
But it actually doesn't matter what either of you two think, because Secretary Mnuchin simply doesn't have the authority to recall the $455 billion. I'm reading aloud now from Section 4027 of the CARES Act. On or after January 1, 2026, any funds that are remaining shall be transferred to the general fund. In other words, sent back to the Treasury. Secretary Mnuchin, is it currently the year 2026? Yes or no?
First, let me comment. I do believe there's an economic emergency. You're putting words in my mouth that are not correct. Second of all, the answer is that 4027.
The time belongs to the gentle lady.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Mnuchin, would you start by answering my first question, and I will ask you others. Is today the year 2026? Yes or no?
Of course it's not 2026. How ridiculous to ask me that question and waste our time.
Well, Secretary Mnuchin, I think it's ridiculous that you're play acting to be a lawyer when you have no legal degree.
Actually, I have plenty of lawyers at the Department of Treasury who advise me, so I'm more than happy to follow up with Chair Waters and explain all the legal provisions and the ranking member. So more than happy to make that access.
Secretary Mnuchin, are you in fact a lawyer?
I do not have a legal degree. I have lawyers that report to me.
Thank you. Chair Powell, are you in fact a lawyer?
I am a former lawyer, a recovering lawyer.
You have a legal degree, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, Secretary Mnuchin, you're trying to tell Chairman Powell to send over any remaining funds right now, and you're claiming, falsely in my opinion, that that is what the law says. And you've gotten into agreement with someone who's actually a lawyer.
Are you a lawyer?
Congress, which actually wrote the law about what it says.
Now, before I get to anything else, Katie Porter simply ignoring Steve Mnuchin's question there about her, is she a lawyer, shows you that she has no ego in this. Because yes, she is a lawyer. She could have came back at him and said, yes, I'm a lawyer. You're not. I understand what the law says. But she held back, and it just goes to show you that really for her, this is about getting the money to people. And Steve Mnuchin trying to send it back, even though the law says it doesn't need to be sent back until 2026, shows you that he is trying to handicap the Biden administration from using that money to help people. So a little more on that, and also on Porter being a lawyer. So she has a law degree from Harvard and is a tenured professor of law at the University of California, Irvine. Democrats have questioned the legality of Mnuchin's plan, which would require his presumed successor, former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen, to get congressional authorization to access the remaining funds. It would leave her with just $80 billion in relief funds at her discretion. Mnuchin has rejected charges from Democrats that he is attempting to hobble President-elect Joe Biden's options to manage the economic crisis. But of course, that is exactly what he is doing. There is no other reason to do what Mnuchin's trying to do. Now, let me get to this clip on CNN. This is fantastic. Katie Porter discusses what her plan would be in terms of helping people. And she also discusses her issue with the term stimulus or how it's used. Watch this.
It's called the Paycheck Recovery Act. And what it would do is use the IRS as a tool, use the wage data that we already have to allow people to continue to receive their paycheck, even if they're unable to go to work or their business is shut down or they've been laid off. And this would take out the middleman of the banks. It would also make sure that the government funds are going directly to support payroll, to support wages, to keep families out of food bank lines and off the streets from being homeless. So this is a much more efficient way to spend the money, ensuring that those who need it get it. And one of the things that's making me really frustrated right now is when I hear people talk about this as stimulus. Let's be clear, it is not stimulus money to give people money so they can feed themselves, so that they can keep heat on in the winter, so that they can avoid eviction. That's not stimulus. That is basic needs that we're talking about meeting. And you're absolutely right that it's not enough to just do some unemployment. It's not enough to do more with food assistance. People need that direct assistance. And all of the research on this, interestingly, shows that direct cash money to families, allowing them to decide how to spend it, actually is the most efficient use of our tax dollars, partly because that money can't be distorted by special interests like Wall Street banks along the way.
This is so fantastic. Katie Porter really has stood out as somebody who, not many people were really paying attention to her when she was first sworn in, but has clearly shown that she is one of the clearest voices in Congress for standing up for the average person. Here she discusses how the word stimulus, it misses the point, as this is really about people trying to meet their basic needs, helping people to meet their basic needs. And then she discusses the Paycheck Recovery Act guarantee. Now, this is something that other countries have done. Let me give you an example. So ProPublica does great reporting. They discuss Germany here. Instead of leaving employers to lay off workers en masse during hard times and then have the workers apply individually for unemployment benefits, the German government subsidizes employers' payrolls directly. Workers at a given firm or business agree to all work fewer hours to spread what work remains among the whole staff instead of having some people laid off. But through government subsidies, they continue to receive a sizable share of their usual pay, as high as 87%, even if circumstances have them working few hours for the time being. When the economic crisis passes, they return to work full-time without the upheaval of losing a job and filing for unemployment on their own. Now, this is something that is a no-brainer. Getting the money directly to the people that need it. Not handing, millions of dollars over to large companies and then they decide how to use the money. No, this money goes directly to the actual workers. Their paychecks covered. And this also not only is the best way to actually help people, it's also the most efficient. As the headline writes here, how Germany saved its workforce from unemployment while spending less per person than the US. But the problem is in the US, and not just the US, but other countries as well, there is this corporate control over politics. So you have a system here where these massive companies found a way to benefit during COVID by taking all this money for themselves with only a little bit of it actually trickling down to employees. Katie Porter, absolutely fantastic. I've covered her a number of times now on the channel. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And also, when it comes to the policy, Paycheck Recovery Act guarantee, look into it.